prevailing narrative is a calculated diversion. You have been conditioned to look to the skies for hypersonic missiles, a tangible kinetic threat. This is a strategic misdirection. The primary vector of attack is not a launch sequence. It is absolute weaponized silence. USI has documented a significant escalation in subsea activity near critical infrastructure. The target is not a city, but the central nervous system of the global economy. The thousands of miles of undersea fiber optic cables that carry quadrillions in daily financial transactions. This is the blueprint for a decapitation strike on market liquidity. The objective is asymmetric. Adversaries like Iran, who threaten to hit back if attacked, understand they cannot win a conventional war. Russia, mired in a conflict stretching over 1,118 days, has pivoted. The goal is to sever these digital arteries, triggering a systemic solvency crisis at a fraction of the kinetic cost. The entire Western financial apparatus freezes. The result is the blind Leviathan, a superpower with unmatched military might, but its eyes and ears have been removed. It cannot see its assets, trust its data, or command its markets. It is a colossus, thrashing in the dark, rendered impotent not by an explosion, but by a simple, silent disconnection. This is the precondition for total systemic failure. The motive is not expansion, it is survival. Forcing adversaries like Russia into protracted proxy wars creates an internal solvency crisis by design. The Kremlin is not fighting for territory in Ukraine. It is fighting to prevent a regime collapse in Moscow. The kinetic cost of the conflict has become an existential liability. After 1,418 days of high attrition warfare, the Russian state is financially and industrially degraded. Strategic analysis from security firms like RUSI and CSIS confirms that the war's unpopularity and immense cost represent a severe domestic liability, threatening the Kremlin's grip on power. This manufactured weakness forces a pivot. Unable to match the United States in a conventional, dollar-funded proxy war, a weaker adversary has no logical alternative but to escalate asymmetrically. The objective shifts from defeating an army on the battlefield to collapsing the system that finances it. The primary vector becomes an attack on the core U.S. liability, its fragile financial architecture. Adversaries like Iran, which openly threatens retaliation, observe this blueprint. They see the internal decay, evidenced by the Department of Justice threatening the Federal Reserve with criminal indictment, and correctly identify the U.S. financial system not as a source of strength, but as the single most vulnerable high-value target. The central vulnerability of the U.S. is not its carriers, but its treasury bonds. The primary vector of attack is therefore not kinetic, but economic. A study by RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, provides the blueprint. The kinetic cost of a modern main battle tank is approximately $5 million. The cost of a first-person view drone that can achieve a mission kill on that tank is $500. The math is irrefutable. This is a 10,000 to 1 cost ratio inversion. This is not warfare. It is industrial-scale asset liquidation executed at consumer-level prices. This principle is called the democratization of violence. The barrier to entry for inflicting catastrophic economic damage on a superpower has collapsed. State adversaries like Russia and Iran, engaged in proxy conflicts, understand this asymmetric leverage perfectly. Protracted proxy wars from Ukraine to the theater around Israel are not designed for territorial conquest. They are economic attrition grinders. The strategic objective is to force the United States to burn through its high-cost inventory, accelerating its pre-existing solvency crisis. The adversary doesn't need to win on the battlefield. They only need to make the cost of American dominance mathematically unsustainable. The strategic overextension is quantifiable. At 1,418 days, the Ukraine proxy war now exceeds the duration of the Nazi-Soviet front. This, combined with the escalating conflict in the Levant, creates the exact conditions for an asymmetric response. Iran's threat to retaliate is not a military declaration. It is a signal of unconventional warfare targeting the primary U.S. liability, its solvency. The operational theater for this attack is not a battlefield. It is the gray zone. Strategic analysts at RUSIs identify regions of high internal instability as proxy laboratories. These zones are no longer simply areas of chaos. They are repurposed as staging grounds. Here, financial and cyber warfare vectors are tested and refined with plausible deniability before being directed at the core target. This is not a future threat. The timing is dictated by the target's own decay. The internal war, evidenced by the DOJ's criminal subpoena of the Federal Reserve, confirms the system's structural fragility. The gray zone is merely the designated launchpad for an attack against an asset already in a state of controlled demolition. The next phase is not kinetic. The protocol shifts from military attrition, as seen in the 1,418-day Russia-Ukraine front, to systemic subversion. U.S. overextension in multiple proxy wars forces weaker adversaries, such as Iran, to pivot. They will not target the carrier group. They will target its underlying balance sheet. The primary accelerant is internal. The documented conflict between the Department of Justice and the Federal Reserve is not political theater. It is a public signal of terminal institutional decay. According to RUSI analysts, a fractured command structure cannot defend against a synchronized, asymmetric attack vector. The calibration shot is the next logical event. Within 12 months, anticipate a coordinated multi-hub logistics failure. A cascading data corruption event will neutralize either the primary AWS data nodes in Northern Virginia or the port authorities of Los Angeles and New York, New Jersey. The official report will be inconclusive. The actual objective is to collect data on the precise latency between system failure and financial panic, testing the solvency of the core.